lived in Mongolia for 27 months, from the summer of 2016 until the summer of 2018. For 24 of these months, I lived in Hoftsum, a small village with about 1,000 inhabitants. Mongolia can be easily conceptualized by Americans as being divided into 21 states. Unlike America, each state has only one city, though many smaller surrounding villages, called somes. My Somme was located in Hoft province and, confusingly, was itself called Hoft. Unlike many Peace Corps volunteers, who had to withstand 6 to 8 hours in an old Russian Jeep to reach their city center, I was lucky to live just 40 minutes from our city, which was easily accessible by the taxis that went to and from the center daily. Because of this proximity, I would travel to the city twice a month to restock on groceries and spend a day with friends living in the city before returning to my small Somme. The bumpy dirt roads stretched across a basin of brown for most of the year. From October to April, temperatures are too cold in Mongolia for anything green to survive, although you could still see goats, sheep, horses, cows, and camels grazing in vain throughout these months. Hoft is located in far western Mongolia, just one province away from Bayan-Olgi, a region so far west that its people are actually Kazakhs, who had wandered east from Kazakhstan before borders were drawn. Hoft province itself was populated mostly by Mongolians, but my individual city is one of the few pockets outside of Bayan-Olgi to consist entirely of Kazakh people. This interesting quality of the West had another impact on me. Instead of being able to apply the Mongolian language and cultural skills that the Peace Corps spent 3 months drilling us on during our pre-service training, I was placed in a region where I needed to start, if not from scratch, then close to it. Another challenging aspect of the West is that this already arid region is also too cold to snow for much of the winter. I envied many of my fellow volunteers their snowy homes that made for picturesque Facebook selfies. Thus, I spent most of my 10 months in a somewhat unremarkable brown landscape. The frozen rivers, however, framed my village beautifully and added a glimmer to this small village buried between the mountains. Of the 1,000 people living in Hoftsum, 460 are school children. Children amounted to half of our population because many are sent to the village by their families to live in the school dormitory for the school year, while the family remains in the countryside, herding and caring for their animals. With children making up such a huge percentage of my interactions, it's perhaps unsurprising how many of my memorable moments include them. In the classroom, most students were somewhat quiet and shy, not confident enough in their English to participate actively unless playing a high-energy game that made them forget their inhibitions. Outside of school, it was a different matter, and the children were more comfortable about expressing their curiosity.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Good. How are you? Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
The heightened presence of kids in my life definitely wasn't the only thing I began to adjust to. On my walk home from work, it wasn't uncommon to see people galloping by on horses or to walk in the middle of a herd of wayward goats. Additionally, our village, like many in Mongolia, had no running water, so I became adjusted to visiting the chaos at our local well daily. Although I still maintain that a line would serve better than a mob the spigot system, I learned to elbow my way through well enough. Right up the street from the well is the yard where I lived. As you can see, it's pretty simple. The dung right there is what I made my fire with. That little blue hut is my outhouse. And this is my house with its own little shed attached. This way of living is called a ger, and it's a very traditional Mongolian way of making your home. especially good for herders who have to move all the time. It makes your house really portable.
How are you?
The inside of a ger is really simple. You have a fireplace, a sink, a place to put your clothes, a freezer, maybe a little kitchen with an oven, a blue bucket where you can do all of your laundry and give yourself a bath, a little couch, a bed, and some beautiful Mongolian decorations on the ceiling. Living in a ger was my favorite part of my Peace Corps experience, and I'm so happy I got to be in this super traditional way of living. However, sometimes in the winters, having to make 6, 7, even 8 fires a day just to stay warm got a little tiring. Even shopping for food in Hoofdstroom was a very simplistic experience.
Hello. You guys say hi to America.
Hi to America.
We got some beer and some soda, vodka, candy, soap, toys, clothes, toilet paper.
When I wasn't being followed around by my students, I was often hanging out with my fellow teachers. At school events, tables were filled with fruits and so-called salads, which were 60% mayonnaise, and shots of vodka. All across Mongolia, the phenomena of group circle dancing pervaded, and my school was no exception. No matter what kind of party you put a Mongolian into, they will find a way to make it into a dance circle, with one poor soul being shoved into the middle at a time. Whether it be dinner parties for all of the female teachers, or smaller parties just for friends, I soon learned to appreciate how much Kazakh people loved to sing and dance.
Give me those good dance moves. This is Ainagul's birthday 2016. Hey yo! Wow!
Another note about weddings is that they are far less a friends and family affair, as in America. Instead, the entire community is invited to sing, eat, dance, and give toasts to the bride and groom until well after midnight. I was delighted to be invited to a wedding on the very first night I arrived in Hove, and have been to many since, although I still can't stomach the combination of traditional milk tea and the obligatory shots of vodka. In the big town nearby, once a year, every summer, was the national Mongolian holiday called Naadam. This holiday was celebrated by wrestling, horseback riding, and archery, considered to be the 3 manly sports. Every summer, I would go and watch people walk around in their beautiful traditional clothes and see the sports take place. In addition to all of this Mongolian culture that I was soaking up, I was also making some great connections with the other Peace Corps volunteers who live nearby, and people from all over the world who happened to arrive in Hope just at the same time I did. Whether it was dancing in our tiny nightclub, finding a new way to open a bottle of wine, celebrating New Year's together, or just laughing over dinner, some of my favorite memories are with these people.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So good, yes.
I'm ready.
Oh my god. Oh, I cannot wait. Oh, I'm so scared. Ghana, you're like in the danger zone.
It's gonna fly right at your face.
No.
It's not gonna pop out completely.
Yeah, it worked! It worked! It's good!
I mean, it's just a fact of life.
Not for everyone, but for you, yeah.
And yeah, this is pretty much our life. We're gonna drink and then be creative tonight, and that's what we're doing.
And future Jennifer, I love you and miss you. Mwah.
Back to you, future Valerie.
Oh.
Okay, bye.
Having some friends just 1 hour away from me definitely made my service a lot easier and a lot more fun. But out alone in my village, a lot of times it was pretty quiet, very cold, very isolated, and very different from any culture I had ever known. Despite all of the ups and downs in each of our services, it'll be hard to say goodbye to Mongolia, but we'll all be bonded by this crazy experience for the rest of our lives.
Take care, everybody. Be good and be safe, as always.